Hello, music lovers. Welcome to episode 86 of What Makes This Song Special. As always, we're going to talk about a song that means something to me. Selfishly, I don't care if it means something to you, but we're going to talk about what it means to me. What does it take me back to in my life, and why is it a special song to me? And then we'll talk a little bit about the song and the singer, as always. And we'll do a wee part two that you'll be able to click on somewhere at the end. And I'll do a cover version of the song on the piano. Sometimes I'll do it on the guitar, but it's almost always on the piano. So, yeah, I suppose when people ask me what my favourite song of all time is, like it is for most folk, it's a kind of impossible question to answer. You know, I suppose it goes back to the essence of what these little episodes that I do on the channel are all about. You know, loving a song isn't always about how good the song is, how well it's written, how musically intelligent it is, how great the lyrics are. It's more often about what it means to you, what it reminds you of, what it takes you back to, how it makes you feel. And I don't think I could definitively say that this is my favourite song of all time. But for all of those reasons that I just mentioned, it's got to make the shortlist for the top 10. I think for definite, this would be my top 10 favourite songs of all time. And again, it's mostly because of what it takes me back to. It's not really a genre that I listen to, sort of indie dream pop, I feel like. Nor is it from one of my favourite bands of all time, even though I do like quite a few of this band's songs. But this song, from the moment that I heard it in 2010, it just makes you feel a certain way. It made me feel sort of invincible. And I don't know if that's something that other people get from this type of song, but there's a feeling in it that you can just sort of puff out your chest and say, I've got this to the world. And if you put headphones on and turn the volume up, that euphoric, dreamy production sort of transforms you and delivers you to a place where anything's possible. And that's exactly what the song did to me every morning around about that time. And sort of 2010, I mean, I put headphones on, turned the volume up high, and I went for a run. 5k a day keeps the doctor away. That's what I used to always say, or so I thought, as we'll dive into later in the episode. But I used to try and get as close to sort of 20 minutes as I could for this little 5k circuit near my house. And this is a song that I sort of strategically placed at the end of the playlist to encourage me up that last hill in the final 3 or 4 minutes that led me back to me and my wife's first apartment way back many years ago. And it just energised me on that last kilometre. The song's it's a very energetic song. I loved running. I loved exercise. I loved lifting weights, playing football, doing martial arts. I worked in gyms and health clubs for about 12 years whilst trying to sort of pursue my music career. And the one thing I never understood was hearing people talk about having to go to the gym or forcing themselves to go for a run. I loved it. I was obsessed with it. It never felt like a chore. It always was something that made me feel like I was progressing in life, if that makes sense. It was the sort of antidote to my mental health struggles. But it was an addiction that felt sort of paradoxical, because how can something that's healthy be bad for you? And yet my obsession with self-improvement and exercise was indeed sort of destroying me at that time. And I've spoken a little bit about this a couple of times on the channel, my Lyme disease journey. I won't repeat all of that stuff on here again. I'm not going to bore you all with that. I've spoken about it in a couple of episodes. But this song sort of reminds me of the moment where something changed, something in my body changed, something noticeable happened, where I was like, something's not right. And this was the song that always kind of takes me back to that moment. It was one of those slow motion kind of moments in a movie where something slips out of your hand and you try to catch it, only to realise that it's gone, it's lost. There was a lot going on in my life at that point in 2010. Stuff that's too personal to sort of go into in detail on here, but let's just say that I was emotionally, physically, spiritually everythingly exhausted. I'd been burning the candle at both ends for a long, long time, and in the late summer of 2010, I just crashed and burned out. I can almost pinpoint the moment. Sweet Disposition by Temper Trap was helping me up the steep Rannon Road in Cathcart in the south side of Glasgow. I had the volume up high, turned up so high I could feel the bass drum in my stomach. And the muscle burn that had started long ago on that run had sort of I'd got worse and worse on the steep incline back to my house. The rain pouring down on me, which wasn't that unusual, to be fair, in Glasgow in August, unfortunately. And I was just feeling really proud in that moment that I'd managed that run, because that morning I did a completely different sort of experience with exercise. I'd woken up really early, I had a rare day off work, and I decided to go for a workout. Went to the gym really early to do a weight session. As always back then, I would try and do like a really quick weight session. I like to try and lift really heavy weights, not too many repetitions, not much rest in between. That was my thing. In and out, 20 minutes sort of thing. Really, really just smash it and leave. And about 5-10 minutes into the session, I started to feel really shaky, really sick, really dizzy. And I sort of tried to push the physical feelings to the back of my mind, assuring myself that it was maybe because I hadn't eaten anything, and I pushed on. And I remember halfway through my first set of pull-ups, I started to feel really sick. And then when I got to the kind of weighted dip machine, I just had this really sharp pain in my chest, and I felt like somebody was like giving me a bear hug and crushing my rib cage. And my vision went all cloudy, and I felt faint. And I eventually had to just go and sit on the floor in the corner of the gym. Fortunately, it was really, really quiet at that time in the morning, and there weren't really many people sort of taking much notice of me. Although I don't think in that state I would really have cared. I think you're kind of self, what's the word? When you become self-conscious about things, that kind of thing leaves you when you're in that type of state. You just don't care about what other people are thinking. And one of my martial arts kind of pals that I used to hang out with at the time, and a guy called Cha used to be a personal trainer in the gym as well, and he walked past and stopped to see if I was okay. And he told me I looked terrible and I was really pale. And I remember about 10-15 minutes later, I went back into the weights room and I picked up these kettlebells, and he just sort of ran in and forced me to go home. I remember trying to convince him and myself that I was okay, and maybe I'm just coming down with a cold, maybe I'm probably I should have eaten something before I came in or whatever. And he was like I can't let you finish this workout, and talked me into leaving. So I remember going down the stairs back to the car park after debating with him, and I thought I'll reassess things after. And I sat down inside my car, and as soon as I sat down in the car, everything just started to spin. The whole car park started to sort of spin. My vision went all cloudy and blurred, and I thought, oh no, I'm gonna faint. I'm gonna pass out. And I remember opening the door of the car and trying to lean out of the car to get fresh air and to potentially throw up. And I remember like retching, and nothing was coming up because I hadn't eaten anything. Sorry for the detail here, but yeah, I was struggling for breath. I was really panicking, and it felt like forever. And eventually I managed to compose myself enough to drive home and lie down for half an hour, and then waited till I was feeling a bit better and had something to eat, and played the PlayStation or something like that for a couple of hours in the afternoon, which was great fun, and something that you can do before kids come along and take up all your time and all that stuff. So I kind of turned it into an okay day. But back to the run that I mentioned a second ago, here I was a few hours after this event, later that afternoon, feeling guilty for not completing the workout earlier that morning, convincing myself that I was fine, pulling myself up the hill towards my apartment, making sure that I got that workout in that day, and pushing myself to do a 5k run, because I felt the guilt of not finishing the workout in the morning. That's kind of where the addiction was at with it. And I just thought I was invincible. After all, I was in my 20s, I had muscles, a six-pack, I was super fit. What could go wrong? And the next day I woke up with a headache and dizziness that never left me for about 4 months. And over the space of a few weeks, new symptoms that I'd never experienced in my life entered my world one at a time, until I was going out of my mind, torturing myself, trying to work out what was wrong with me. Numerous doctors, specialists, health consultants, blood tests, crazy therapies over the space of more than 2.5 years at that point, all came to the conclusion that I was a perfect picture of health. Everything was normal, my blood tests were better than normal. I was in perfect condition apparently, and yet every day I woke up feeling like somebody had poisoned me. Just crazy levels of pain, fatigue, and other horrific symptoms that were unbearable. And it's kind of incredible to see what you can, go through as a human, what you can withstand and keep facing day after day and pushing through. I would never have thought that I could have, had the strength to go through something like that until it happened. And then survival becomes this incredible instinct that just takes over, and you just keep going because you have to keep going. And it's crazy. And as I mentioned before, I was, eventually was diagnosed with chronic Lyme disease, which although felt like a win at the day that I was diagnosed, because I finally had something to call this crazy thing that was going on in my life, that I was starting to think that people didn't believe me when I said I wasn't well, because I didn't have a label for it. That win of having the label then of course became another horrible journey of years and years of antibiotics and crazy therapies and a million other things that I won't bore you with. Just madness. But what's important is the song. The whole point that I'm telling you all this big sob story is because although the song reminds me of that day, which, let's be honest, is a really negative association. It's the start of one of the worst chapters of my entire life. But regardless of that, I still feel happy when I hear that song. Like, I still feel that euphoria. I feel like I did on those runs when I was able to push past the fatigue and the tiredness and the urge to give up. And those are the things that got me to sitting here today. Like, that is the reality. As grim as that sounds, it's hope and fight and all those things that kind of keep you going when things are tough. And that never give up attitude that you learn from doing things that are tough, like running up hills and working out. And that's, I suppose, another reason why exercise is so great, because a lot of people don't enjoy it, but they do it anyway. And I think that readies you, it prepares you for those moments in life that you don't want to experience, but they're going to happen anyway at some point, And I think the song just reminds me of how much I've dealt with and how tough I was at times where I probably didn't really anticipate being tough. And this isn't a, look how great I am, look how tough I am story. I'm still not back to 100% health all these years later, but I'm still working on it day by day. And one day I'll run up that same hill again, listening to Sweet Disposition by Temper Trap, probably with a huge smile on my face and maybe a few tears in my eyes. But that's why the song's special to me. It means so much to me, that song, musically and emotionally. It just does something to me. It just makes me feel alive. So why is it special to you? If it's special to you, leave me a wee comment. We'll talk a bit about the song, and not just my association with it. But Sweet Disposition is a song by Australian indie rock band The Temper Trap. It was the first single on their debut album Conditions. Really nice album, really cool album. It's got that euphoric dream pop element to it, dream indie pop, or whatever you want to call it, indie dream pop. Really kind of euphoric production, lots of reverbs, and it's a great sounding album. It peaked at number 14 in Australia, where the band are from, and then it reached the top 10 in the UK. And then once it was used in the soundtrack for the film 500 Days of Summer, it climbed up to number 9 on an alternative Billboard chart in the US. It was then featured in quite a few other Hollywood movies over the space of a couple of years, a few years, which made it one of those tracks that it was a huge hit without being a huge hit, if that makes sense. It kind of never got to number one and became like a number one hit, but it was probably in the charts somewhere in dozens of countries for months and months on end, maybe even years on end. And everyone knew the song because of all the different sort of platforms it was used on, and movies and television programs and adverts, and it's just a feel good track. It just works for that type of thing as well. It works for movies and stuff. An amazing track, a really amazing song. So yeah, that's why the song's special to me. Yeah, was I addicted to exercise? Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Can you have an unhealthy relationship with a healthy pastime? Absolutely. Was I using exercise to run away from the emotional problems in my life? Without a doubt. And did I realise it at the time? Maybe. I think looking back, probably I did realise it at the time. But you kind of think that you're invincible. Like I said earlier, like the song makes me feel invincible, but I think we all think we're invincible until something snaps, and then we realise that we're fragile. So I suppose it's a kind of there's always a wee warning there with exercise and all these things. You have to. There's a great quote by a guy called Paul Chek, who's a kind of health guru, who always used to say, every time you work out, you have to then work in. So if you're doing a workout where you've got an energy expenditure, you should then do something afterwards where you're sitting, meditating, or stretching, or having a cup of tea and just thinking about life, and making sure that you're reclaiming that energy back, rather than just constantly, like what I was doing, just working, exercising, and never really getting good sleep and working back in. So anyway, without this becoming a lecture about health, my other favourite conversation and topic, but yeah, there's always a song to help you through. This was the song for me at the time, Sweet Disposition by Temper Trap. I will be doing a cover version of the song on the piano, which a link for will turn up here or here somewhere in the next minute or so. Yeah, thanks so much for tuning in. As always, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. If you're looking for vocal coaching, singing lessons, all that type of stuff, get in touch. And yeah, I'll see you next week for another song and another story. Thank you.